The 104th Battalion is one of the most loved clone units in all of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, but many people don't know the full details of who they were or their long list of important missions. So in today's video, I will break down every ounce of information we know about the 104th Battalion.
For the Republic!
The 104th Battalion, also called the Wolfpack Battalion, was led directly by Jedi Master Plo Koon and Commander Wolf, both of which are characters that were loved by many. But who really were the 104th Battalion? Well, for starters, the 104th Battalion was known for their two different armor colors. Their first one they were known for was their maroon armor seen in the early days of their service. Though, following the tragic loss of most of their battalion, they changed their color scheme to a gray in honor of their fallen members. Additionally, most members were marked with a unique left shoulder emblem, and certain special members were also marked with the wolf logo as well. Additionally, they're the only clone unit known to wear this unique sand harsh weather gear / armor, and though this armor has no official name, the 104th Battalion are the only clones we would see wearing it. Another extremely unique piece of the 104th is their completely unique vehicles that had their own color schemes compared to other units. They had their own blue and white LAAT gunships that also had decals that read Plo's Bros. They had their own ATTEs with a blue and orange face markings, which these ATTEs also came with the extremely unique ATTE drivers and gunners. They also had their own unique ARC 170s, which are some of the coolest vehicles I've seen, as well as their own unique Y-Wings. Sadly, not much is known about what types of missions the 104th specialized in. However, through their appearances in the Clone Wars and other source material, we often see them sent on rescue and relief missions, and many current source books talk about how they are well known for their long lists of rescues. So if you don't mind me inserting some of my personal headcanon, it appears through a primary assessment that most of their missions are rescue based and that their battalion was likely heavily focused and specialized in rescue and relief missions. Similar to their lack of knowledge about what they specialize in, we have absolutely no clue where they fell in the greater GAR military structure, which is a shame. However, we do know about one of their most famous subunits. The 104th had a subunit called the Wolfpack or Wolfpack Squad. This squad went on a number of missions either separate of the 104th or operating alongside the 104th, and they had three notable members, those being Boost, Corporal Comment, and Sergeant Sinker. Of course, the squad was led by Wolf himself as well. However, these were not the only notable members of the 104th. We actually know of a total of 13 members of the Wolfpack across Legends and Canon, two of which being pilots for them. As previously stated, you had Boost, Comet, and Sinker. We also had clone troopers Scope, Sprint, Spitter, Mortar, Tracer, Warthog, and Corvus, those two being the pilots, as well as Wildfire, Umbra, and of course, Wolf himself. With everything about the 104th established, let's get into their missions and battles. As always, I have put the missions in chronological orders to the best of my ability and gathered every mission I could find into one list. Very shortly after the Battle of Geonosis, the 104th would be sent on their first deployment, and that was to the planet of Quarmendy. This was the home of the Nexus trade post, which was being held up by Amir Wat Tambor of the Separatists. The 104th were deployed to take the trade outpost back, while the Wolfpack specifically was sent to rescue the custodian of the trade post. The battle would result in the destruction of the trade post, but the 104th was able to secure the custodian and make sure there were zero losses after the post was destroyed. And although many members of the battalion would classify this as a loss, Plo Koon would state that this was actually a win. Following their semi-success on Quarmendy, the 104th would be sent to the planet of Hisseen, where they, alongside the 212th and the 501st, would work to push Separatist forces off the planet and rescue the Parliament who had been captured on the planet. Despite some troubles, the three clone units alongside their Jedi would be able to successfully complete their mission. The next time we would see the 104th would be probably the saddest appearance of them. Plo Koon and his fleet would be searching for the Malevolence, a secret Separatist superweapon, when it would actually find them in space near Abregado Rae. It was here that the Malevolence would take out almost every single clone that was part of this fleet, with the only known surviving members being Plo Koon, Wolf, Sinker, and Boost. Oddly, there's no mention of Comet here, but we do know that he either survived this battle or just simply was not present at it. Nonetheless, this catastrophic event would be what caused the remaining members and all future members of the 104th to adopt the gray color scheme we are more used to seeing them in, though they would have a couple missions before this transition actually happened. The next battle for the 104th was very important to the story of the 104th, but more specifically to Wolf himself, and that would be to the planet of Khorm. Now, Khorm has two stories. In canon, we know that Anakin and Wolf were deployed to lead forces on this planet. In Legends, it's actually Kit Fisto, Master Plo, and another Jedi, as well as a special operations division of clones known as the Devil Dogs, and members of the 104th, though likely it was just Wolfpack Squad, though this is not clearly stated. Now, in canon, all we know about this battle is that it happened and it's where Wolf lost his eye. However, in Legends, we know this battle was a multi-stage operation that saw Republic forces embroiled in heavy fighting and having to deal with absolutely incompetent leaders that constantly failed on the battlefield. The majority of the time we would see the 104th and its member participating in this battle would be with the initial attack on the new fob the Republic would set up, and later seeing the 104th members being captured and forced to break out. Following this breakout, they would regroup with the main Republic force before the final assault on the planet, which is where we would see Wolf lose his eye to the hands of Ventress as she fled the scene. One other note is that in the Legends version of this battle, we actually get to see Wolf in a very unique colored tealish blue snow gear, something we've never seen before and we would never see again. Nonetheless, the key takeaway from this battle, both in Legends and in canon, is that it would result in Wolf losing his eye. After Khorm, the 104th would be sent to support Anakin and Obi-Wan and their respective clone units at the first battle of Felucia. Specifically, the 104th were in charge of breaking and holding the Separatist blockade, while the other Republic forces took part in a ground assault. However, the ground forces became overran by the Separatists and had to be rescued by the 104th, and this was just the first of many rescues we would see the 104th conducting. Following their appearance at Felucia, the 104th would continue their streak of rescues, this time on the planet Vanqor, where Mace Windu and Anakin had been trapped in the wreckage of a Venator after an attempt by young Boba Fett to take out Mace. While this mission was not super complex or crazy, it does reaffirm the 104th's possible specialization in rescue missions. Alongside this fact, this would also be when we'd see the 104th officially switch to the gray color scheme of their armor. Now, sometime in 21 BBY, the 104th also had one of their least known deployments. However, this only happened in Legends. We see Master Plo and Ahsoka deployed alongside a number of unnamed 104th members who were wearing a very unique yellow armor to the planet of Malastare. Here, they were shot down in their LAAT gunship and located a large source of metal. Fearing that it was the Separatists trying to find the Zilla Beast to clone them, they went to investigate. This is what led them to come into contact with a group of local Dugs who were secluded and did not speak any Basic. This led to the 104th and the Jedi having to fight them, which led to most of the clones being lost, and by the time they had taken out all of the locals, they were surrounded by droids. Though the ending of the story is unknown, it's also worth noting that the story does take place after the events of the Malastare arc we see in the Clone Wars show. Another mission that happened in 21 BBY that we don't know exactly where it fell on the timeline is when the 104th would have another very important Legends mission. Now, this mission was important because it played into a lot of the story we see in the Clone Wars series. And because of this, we know that it happened prior to the war we would see in Mon Cala on the Clone Wars TV show. During this mission, the 104th alongside Master Plo and an unnamed Jedi were deployed to an outpost on a comet called Iceberg Three. Here, they were trying to prevent a Separatist invasion in the system. The Republic forces saw great fighting on the comet, and the Jedi Knight was even able to push Grievous off the comet, and the Republic was able to make the Separatist forces retreat from the comet. Ultimately, though, their efforts were not enough, and the assassination of the king of the Mon Calamari would still happen, leading to an all-out war on the planet that we would see in the Clone Wars show. Interestingly, though, in this battle, we see some Phase 1 104th members in their maroon armor, but we also see Wolf in snow armor that is in the traditional 104th gray scheme, rather than the unique bluish teal we saw at the Battle of Khorm. Moving into the year of 20 BBY, we would see the 104th deployed again alongside the 501st, again to Felucia. In spite of the retreat at the first battle, Anakin had led the 501st to re-establish a Republic presence on the planet. Because of this, the Separatists were being reinforced at an outpost. This is where we would see the 104th along the 501st as they attempted to take the outpost. To do so, they were using a three-pronged attack, with Anakin leading the 501st at the front gates, Master Plo and Wolf leading a group of jetpack troopers in the 104th as they aerial assaulted the outpost. Finally, we would see Ahsoka leading members of the Wolfpack attacking the outpost from behind. Now, the Republic would successfully take this outpost, but Ahsoka would be captured by Trandoshans during the events. Additionally, this is also the battle where we'd see the extremely unique ATTE drivers and gunners of the 104th. Now, the next mission by the 104th would again be another rescue, when a smaller group of clones from the 501st and the 212th that was being led by Anakin and Obi-Wan became stranded on the planet of Lola Sayu. The 104th alongside a number of other Jedi were deployed to rescue them. The Jedi fighters alongside a number of ARC-170s would punch a hole through the Separatist blockade, allowing for Master Plo to pick up those on the ground in his LAAT gunship for extraction. Once again, the 104th's next deployment would pretty much be a rescue mission, but this time it was more so a relief mission. The 104th were deployed to the planet of Aleen after a series of earthquakes had devastated the locals. While this may not have been the wildest deployment, it was another deployment that would back up their search and rescue type missions of the 104th. At the end of the mission, the 104th would meet up with Adi Gallia and the 91st Mobile Reconnaissance Corps and actually give them C-3PO and R2, and this would lead directly into their next mission. Shortly after their mission to Aleen, Adi Gallia was captured by the Separatists in an ambush on her Venator. The 104th alongside Master Plo moved on the Separatist cruiser and quickly rescued her. In the process, they also rescued 3PO and R2, who had ended up on the Separatist ship as well. Again, while this may have not been the most crazy or most detailed mission, it did serve as another rescue mission by the 104th in their career. The 104th's next mission would be no different than many of the other ones we would have already seen. It was again another rescue mission. This time it was to free a number of captured Togruta colonists, as well as Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Rex. The 104th deployed in aerial capacities as well as on the ground. Using Z-95 headhunters, an R-Quinton class light cruiser, and jetpack troopers, they moved on a processing facility on the planet of Kadavo, where they rescued the colonists and the Republic forces successfully. The final mission of the 104th in the year of 20 BBY would be a sad one, and this is when Ahsoka was labeled as a criminal of the Republic and went on the run. We would see Master Plo and Wolf taking part in the search for her. Now, it is unknown if any other members of the 104th took part in the search. However, we do know that the 104th was on Coruscant at the time because we can see them outside the Republic military base during Ahsoka's trial. We now reach the final mission of the 104th, and this would be in 19 BBY, when the Jedi Council received a distress signal from a Jedi shuttle that last belonged to the missing Jedi Master Sifo Dyas. The 104th were deployed thinking it could be a rescue mission, which makes perfect sense. The 104th were sent to the moon of Oba Diah to investigate and search for the signal. They were actually able to discover the shuttle where they found the Jedi Master's lightsaber. They were then ordered by Master Plo to take the entire shuttle back to Coruscant. Sadly though, following Oba Diah, we would not see the 104th again anymore during the Clone Wars or any other Star Wars media. Commander Wolf would make a number of appearances later on, firstly serving the Empire and then later on serving the Rebellion with Rex and Gregor. However, the larger fate of the 104th is unknown, and this includes the fates of famous characters like Comet, Boost, and Sinker. The 104th Battalion is easily one of the coolest battalions in all of Star Wars, both in canon and in Legends. And now you have a complete breakdown of this battalion. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe to see more content like this.